while I'm in the office here at Redcon, I figured why not take up some more of Aaron's time, because obviously he's not busy enough running, a very high growth, very high revenue supplement brand in the industry, and he has a ton of employees, and Black Friday is coming up. But while I'm here, I like to be as efficient and create as much things as possible. So there are things that when I came in the door, I had questions from the outside looking in. As a consultant, I could see a lot of things that what they're doing, and I've spoken about Redcon from so many different angles without actually being in the door. I think that a lot of people struggle with understanding, and one that is a very hot button kind of area of the industry, not just like supplements, but like the consumer packaged goods industry as a whole, is that there's an immense amount of like channel conflict or perceived channel conflict that's happening in the industry because of this new direct-to-consumer focus of a lot of brands, and then on the kind of flip side, retailers focusing on private label. So there's this kind of like bending happening, but you guys do a ton of direct-to-consumer sales. You guys are constantly always doing a promotion. I wanted to at least like sit down and talk to you about how you think about channel conflict, or think about how do you sell a ton of stuff on your direct-to-consumer site, and that's obviously something that's long-term, and you want to continue to kind of foster that and grow that, but also continuously be a great partner with some of these grocery stores now that you're in, some of these convenience stores that you're in, internet retailers, specialty retailers like Vitamin Shop or GNC, or even like Academy or Dick's Sporting Goods, things like that. Like, how do you approach that? Have you been extremely thoughtful towards that? I guess just, kind of talk through it a little bit here, because I think it's an interesting topic for people to understand, because you guys are doing it so well that you guys are growing in every channel. Kind of how do you guys approach that?
So first, I'll say that the initial focus of the brand was direct to consumer, and then second would be specialty. So I'm going to preface all of it, because one of the things that we've done, that we've been able to do, is become very popular and drive demand initially. So I think that if you're coming into this market space now and you don't focus on direct to consumer and driving demand and some specialty and stuff like that initially, even direct to consumer and then potentially then maybe specialty, because what we've been able to do is unique in the fact that we can say whatever. Basically when we came into GNC approached us. So there was never the leverage. So if they would have said, hey, we don't like you doing this discount on your site, I'm like, okay, well, nice to meet you. You know what I mean? Like, it would have been, we had some leverage in the fact that we were already doing well enough and the business was growing fast enough that we could have said no, we could have walked away from any of the deals. So that's one thing that we had on our side, developing that popularity, and then having the confidence to be like, I would just walk away. So I would have not changed the brand model based on a retailer. And we did have some retailers initially in specialty, and we actually, I'm not going to say his name, but we had a guy that we talked about in the car that was like, well, why am I going to promote you if you're sending people to your site? And my initial response is the same thing I tell people now, and every once in a while when somebody says it, is that the digital marketing that we do, the amount of money that we spend, which is a lot, many hundreds of thousands of dollars a month just on Facebook, right? And that amount of money that we're spending, and the content, the quality of the content that we're showing through that, drives the demand for the brand. It doesn't just drive them to our site. It drives the demand and the ability to, or the awareness of the brand in general. So I'm literally paying for hundreds of millions of impressions, whether it's from influencer marketing or affiliates that we have, or the digital marketing spend that we're doing across all kinds of different channels. That drives the awareness of the brand. And when somebody walks into a vitamin shop, they'll see Redcon1 and they're automatically going to be interested because they've heard about it, a friend's talked about it, an influencer they saw posted about it. So my big response to them, in response to the gentleman I was just talking about, was like, wait and see. Because if it's turning off their shelves and it's selling, how can they complain? You can't say, well, I don't want you doing that. Well, it's selling. It's selling more than anybody else. So it's a unique position that we're in. So if a new brand came to me and said, hey, I want to create that same kind of success, I wouldn't tell them to try to do it all at once. I would start with driving demand and having a cool brand that people want. Because if you're trying to force your way in to some place, and like a GNC, for example, and say, hey, you need to have us, they're now able to dictate anything they want. And a lot of people get tripped up, and have, especially in the past, with GNC contracts, where they were got into an agreement where it was not beneficial to them because they're desperate, right? And that ended up maybe badly for them. So we've had nothing but great relationships with GNC and Vitamin Shop. So we've never had that kind of internal conflict. They wanted us. We said, hey, this is what it needs to be. And they said, okay, let's do it. And since then, it's been all positive.
As you guys kind of mature in some of your sales channels, obviously we talked about a bunch of like supplement industry specific ones, but you guys are now in different grocery stores or different drug stores, and you'd obviously has aspirations probably to get into different club stores and things of that nature. Have you seen any pushback from buyers at that level? Have you seen anybody kind of bring up those points, positive or negative, around your guys' activity from direct to consumer?
No, we haven't. We haven't, and I'll tell you, as we get into more and more of those types of stores or chains, it's really more. We talked about this earlier. More focused on data. They're more focused on how the product's going to turn, and I think that they're not as focused on what you're doing necessarily on a direct to consumer channel. At least they haven't been for us, and we're still in the infancy stage of a lot of that stuff. I mean. To be honest, that's all new to me. I don't have a lot of experience with anything like that, and I remember seeing the numbers that like in Albertsons turns of just like, I'll give you an example, like the Kind Bar. I had no idea they're doing, I don't want to give all the numbers, but they're doing, like $100 million plus with Albertsons.
Yeah.
And it's like, obviously, we're not competing with the Kind Bar, but just knowing that those kind of numbers are out there, obviously, makes me super interested. So as we go, but on the flip side, if Albertson says, hey, you can't, I don't want you to see you sending anybody to the site anymore, we'd have to go a different direction, because that's the fundamentally what the brand is about. So I wouldn't want to change anything dramatic about anything.
Yeah, I think it's, I brought up the point of like the maturing of the sales channel, because I think specifically those buyers and those companies have a little bit different of an idea if you get down to like the nuts and bolts of it, because they're dealing with the largest consumer packaged goods brands in the world, Pepsi's or Coke's or Frito-Lay's and those types of companies. And a lot of times they're all about building overall exposure, impressions, as you said, but in a more mass perspective. Right. And you don't really know a lot of times if those are getting drove to the actual retail sense. That is, with the caveat to say, like, those brands have not done a really good job at doing direct-to-consumer sales, but I think that it's an easier conversation to have with a buyer at Albertsons, because they're looking at, can you create, a type of brand that somebody's going to walk in, know what it is, and pick it up off the shelf with them having not to have to do a bunch of education.
Right.
So you doing a bunch of that to create exposure actually helps a ton with you, as long as you can frame it in that way to make it make sense for that buyer, because I think that they are going to look at this from a foreign sense of it's direct to consumer over maybe just mass media type of consumption. There's a little bit different, I think, of the nuance there, but I think that the selling is a lot easier to do that than Joe's supplement store down the street that is just really upset because you're selling a ton of stuff direct to consumer, and he doesn't understand how the $60,000 a month of Facebook ads or whatever is actually helping him. Because maybe he doesn't understand the levels to it, I guess you could say. In terms of direct-to-consumer and your guys' approach initially with some of like the promotional schedule, did you feel at first you had to also bend in a similar way to some of your partners, or did you always kind of hold true to like your sales and promotional calendar on your direct-to-consumer site, and you could care less if it matched some of your partners, or
So no, we did not care about how it matches, but we're particular, obviously more particular about what they're doing with their sales and their promotional cadence. So like, especially e-com stores, sites, we make sure that we approve deals in advance. And then for like the bigger channels, if we're co-funding, then we're really taking a close look, because you have to consider the lift that any kind of deal is doing versus what we're going to be, taken out of our checks, right?
Yeah.
So any kind of credit. So we watch that very carefully, and in terms of the promotions, we've tried to consider the brand on the site. So like we talked about as I walked around, one of the big movers for us is apparel. So giving a gift with purchase, as it seems like a tremendous value to people because they love the apparel anyway. So a $50 hoodie is a $50 hoodie. because that's what it's worth in the mind of the consumer. That's how valuable the thing is, and that's all about brand building and making something cool. Because obviously, if you're a new brand and you're giving away the hoodie, I don't care if it's like a nonsense hoodie. Like at the Olympia back in the day, people throwing the shirts out back when I was in the 90s, 2000s.
Not allowed to do that anymore now.
No, you can't throw anything. But throwing the shirts are junk. Even why would people be all excited? I don't even know who this is throwing out the shirts. But for us now, we've developed this value in the brand and what we're doing. So one of the big things we have is we have millions of pieces of apparel walking around, billboards walking around wearing it, and that's one of the most proud feelings that I get when I go to the Olympia or the Arnold or any of these things and see hundreds of people walking around with a Redcon shirt. It's like an amazing thing that it still like boggles my mind.
It's a very personal thing for somebody to wear a logo on their chest because they're, like you said, they're a walking billboard.
Huge.
So for them to respect or to like a brand to the point where they're going to wear it on their chest is usually a pretty big statement. So when you were answering that question, I kind of thought of two follow-ups, but I'll kind of start with the first one. You talked about internet retailers because I think most people think about channel conflict in the sense of offline, online, but there's also a stance of direct-to-consumer against other online retailers, and most of that comes from the standpoint of like there's a very low switching cost from you can go on Redcon1.com and then open up another window and look at bodybuilding.com or open up subs.com or whatever it is. Yeah. There is ability for a consumer to go back and forth really easily. Were you more thoughtful in that sense of having to maybe cater to the online retailers a little bit more because of that reason, or is it kind of a similar take to brick and mortar retailers?
Well, I don't like. I much rather support and help, and we do. By the way, we do sample support. All the swag you see, we send tons of stuff for Black Friday. We sent 10,000 hoodies to specialty retailers, 10,000 gym bags. At a high cost. So we're always trying to support the retailers that they do have some advantage too. On the flip side, e-com sites, I have like a very, I had a love-hate kind of, because I loved initially that they were able to help us spread the good word, right? Because they all have their audience. So like the people who visit like Muscle and Strength, let's say, they have a big audience, and maybe that audience doesn't know about Redcon. So if we're putting their products on the front page, even if it's with a deal, that extra exposure being added to a bodybuilding.com newsletter, that's added exposure that we're getting for free. Generally, I don't really pay for it. So I know that they want you to, but I'll never pay for anything like that. But so they send it out, and you get in front of a new audience, and so there's benefit to that. At some point, though, you have to wonder where the benefit ends. And so that's kind of where we are, where I think, where does it end? So if there are people that are beating my price on my site, on their site, of my own products, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense at some point. And I don't know if we're there today or where, but one day you have to think, like, why would I want to support a competitor selling my own products for less than me? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The internet is for everybody, right? So there's no distinct advantage at some point. And so, now it's kind of like I wonder about that. Why would we want to allow a BOGO on somebody's site when I'm not doing it? I wouldn't do a BOGO, right? So it's kind of a weird place to be at, where it's like, because a lot of these sites are strictly discount based, where the reason people go to a site like A1, right? A1, because it's deals, always deals. And at some point, we as the e-com site, as the owner, brand owner, you want to be able to be competitive with people that are competing with you with your own products. So it's kind of like there needs to be a come to Jesus at some point with all that. So I'm not like, it's like I love what they did, but like getting us out there, and it did help. But now it comes to a point where you're kind of like, now I'm allowing people to compete with us at a cheaper price for our own stuff, and that doesn't make any sense.
I think you're touching on something that I'm going to ask as the last question. I got one question before that that I want to touch on is, you talked about like gift with purchase or some type of like lever or trigger that is differentiating on your direct-to-consumer. Talk about just the idea of like maybe how you utilize those to provide something a little bit different that maybe is not necessarily like monetary value in terms of like you're discounting or doing a 20% or 30% off. You're just enticing with the gift but also in a sense you guys do a lot of like exclusives. So is there a way to balance that in both ways, where you give certain retailers exclusives. Like, have you guys dabbled in that a lot, or do you guys keep a lot of those exclusives for yourself? I mean, I think that's another kind of big topic around different SKUs, different variants, different things within retail sense to balance the now channel conflict that's created with direct-to-consumer.
Yeah, we have. I mean, right now at Gold's Gym, they have the Tiger's Blood RTD, the Total War, and they're the only ones in the world who have it right now, the Total War Tiger's Blood, and they created a shirt around it, a Redcon shirt with the tiger like slashes, and the Gold's Gym. It's at Gold's Gym, at all the Gold's Gyms, at all the not all the franchise gyms, at all the actual corporate gyms. So like that's one that we did, and we support them. We have lots of them that we've done in the past for different retailers or different channels. And at Academy, we did the America flavor, where it was like America rebranded Total War, and they love that. Texas, I mean, you'd expect that.
Yeah.
And so we've done a lot of different stuff like that. And then on the site, we constantly have different unique stuff coming out. Like for example, on Black Friday, we have Pumpkin Pie Emery Light. We have a whole bunch of different ones for that. We have Miami Vice that just came out, which is like a whole rebranded Total War. We have a bunch of other Emery. I mean, I don't remember when this is coming out, but we got a few things for Christmas, that Emery Light type stuff, and a few other products that are exclusive to the site. Because that helps too, for sure. Because then they're and that's something like Ghost has been great about, where they have something that's unique to them that isn't available to anywhere else. And then on the flip side, we don't mind doing the exact same thing as long as they'll meet the minimum purchase requirement. So if we run something that's like that's going to be popular, I'll require them to do a lot. And that kind of is a sliding scale depending on who they are or what they're going to do or how long they're going to have exclusive. Like GNC had the exclusive on Emery for a year, and in retrospect, like that probably wasn't the best move because it was such a popular product. But if we would have just done it for a few months, that could have been an awesome thing. And so we're always open to doing that. And I think it's a good way to drive demand to the site and to drive demand to retailers by kind of making something exclusive.
And last question around like price integrity, like the importance of price integrity in terms of keeping channel conflict at bay, but also in the sense of like how do you guys approach price integrity in the sense that you guys obviously sell on Amazon, you guys sell every single channel possible. Like how do you effectively manage pricing so everybody's happy?
So first off, if we ever do any deals of any kind, it's obviously always very temporary. It's a flash deal or even sometimes a few hours or something that's limited. Even with the retailers, it's always limited. On Amazon, we use a service, a legal service that polices it. So they'll threaten people basically, and then if they don't act, we because of the connections with Amazon, we're able to get them in some trouble. So it's scary enough that most people will pull the product. So we try to make sure everybody's at MAP on Amazon, and there's bad actors that come and go here and there all the time. But that's something that we're watching all the time. And then in terms of the sites, that's one thing that requires monitoring. And then we'll tell the wholesale guy that deals with them, call them and tell them change it, and they always change it, and then they just change it back later at some point. And then you have to catch them again, and it's a constant cat and mouse game. And then with the big retailers, everything's approved. You don't find. That's the thing. You don't find Dick's Sporting Goods just doing whatever they want, because they don't want to lose the margin anyways. So they're not gonna just do a BOGO at Dick's. They're gonna want you to pay for that, So and it's just not a thing with a bigger retailer. At least I haven't experienced it where they mess with like the integrity of the pricing because they have something. We're just a tiny cog in a huge wheel, right? So it really hasn't been a big deal maintaining price integrity, and it's something that we haven't dealt with, except for in the very beginning, where people were really hesitant because what we were doing was unique and new, and they hadn't seen people doing stuff the way we've been doing it in terms of promotions and being like doing unique deals and everything else. Now it's starting to be like every day. Every other brand is not doing it now.
Yeah.
We have. I'm not going to name them, but there's a few that are like, man, anything we do, it's like the exact same thing comes out, a few weeks later. Even some of the ads. But that's, and what I like that, honestly. Eric and some other people here get super pissed at that. I like it. I think it's funny, and it's complimentary, and like you mentioned before, when you have something that's unique and awesome, it's not easy to just copy the whole thing. You can copy an ad, right? And you can copy a formula of a product, but the whole thing, it's just not copyable.
Yeah, all the elements have to come together, or it just looks unauthentic.
Yeah.
People could tell, even though, you know, sometimes things might slip through the cracks with some consumers and they might get some sales from it. The vast majority of them know the real between the fake type of situation. So is there anything else on this topic that maybe we didn't cover specifically that you think is important for anybody to know?
The other thing that I would say that we've learned is that, you know, obviously international partners is an important thing, because you can think that you're sending it one place and then it really goes somewhere else. So one of the things that we've learned over time is really be suspect of who you may get a guy comes out, I'm from India, give me a great deal, I'll send you $200,000 today. And it sounds like, oh man, $200,000, you send me right now? And he's like, yeah, just ship it to New Jersey, I'll take it from there, you know. And it sounds tempting, and we've made mistakes with stuff like that, and that can really hurt your price integrity, because that guy you made a crazy offer to, because you're like, well, who's going to know? It's going to, you know, Japan. Nobody's going to know, so I may as well just, it's newfound money. That's the one thing that you'll find, I've heard them so many times from international distributors, like, well, you're not in Syria anyway. So, I mean, you give it to me, it's newfound money, it's profit. Obviously, you don't know if it's going to Syria, for one. And then number two, you know, what will they do with the product? Where will it go? You know, there's a lot of factors to think about with that. And if I was to give advice to other supplement brands, be careful, because you may think it's going to Mexico and it's really going to California, you know?
Yeah, I think that's an important point. I'm glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of times people think about the short-term benefit of an international order, because it's usually paid for ahead of time and you don't have terms, and you know, a lot of supplement companies not being funded and needing quick cash a lot of times, they say yes to a lot of those things, but they don't realize, you know, you're giving usually a discount on those big orders, because that's something that they ask for. And then on the back end, it gets back channeled back. Maybe, you know, you send it to Miami, you think it's going to South America, but it ends up just, you know, going back to retail accounts, you know, on Amazon through South Florida, and then all of a sudden you're messed up, you know, more than just that $200,000 worth of orders. It's you know, it's a matter of international partnerships need to be highly vetted in a way that you are getting value, not necessarily just from a short-term perspective. Like these partners, and I don't want to get off track on this topic, but it's they are effectively, in a sense, building your brand in different markets. They are an extension of your you. So you not knowing what their intentions are of that product could fundamentally, you know, ruin a lot of other things other than just you getting a quick $100,000 in cash or something like that.
And that can be very tempting. I've been tempted for sure with big orders, you know, in excess of $500,000, $1 million purchase orders. They're going to send you a wire for it. You need to know who that person is, especially if it's a big one. Because then if it's a big one, they should be a known player. You know,
Yeah.
if you reach out and you go, hey, this guy wants to, because in the supplement space, it's small, right? I mean, if somebody wants to give you $1 million order, chances are everybody knows who they are. And if nobody knows who they are, it's definitely a big problem. Even $100,000 order,
Yeah.
everybody should say, hey, this guy is whatever, so and so, and you know, everybody should know.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it.
Cool.
Appreciate it,
Thank you.
Aaron. I think this is a hot topic. If anybody has additional questions of Aaron, or maybe that I can answer as well, make sure you guys do comment below. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help support me, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button on this video. If this is the first time you've been introduced to my videos, would love for you guys to be a part of my community by subscribing to my channel. I upload several videos just like this weekly, and if you guys want to connect further outside of this platform, I do include all of my social media links down below. I just want to thank you guys again for your time. Hopefully I gave you some value in return, and we'll see you guys on the next video.